Let's learn about statements and control flow in Python. There are different conditional statements or control flow statements in Python that are if else, elif, continue, break, while. But some of them are used in loops and some of them are standalone. That are if else, elif. The control flow is used to control the flow of the program. How flow of the program is usually it executes statement by statement from top to bottom. But when it encounters the control flow statements, flow of the program is changed according to the statement. So here if you use the if condition, so there are this control flow is controlled by decision making statements or conditional statement that are if else, elif, and loops and function calls. Inside function calls we use the return. So here decision making or branching statements, these are referred as conditional statement, and that are if else and if else ladder. So here if you see, if you take if statement is used, whether certain bunch of statements, whether those statements needs to be executed or not. Here if you see, this is called condition or conditional expression because it determines if the statements that are indented inside the if statement are called if block are sweet. So those statements, all those statements combined, we call them as a if block. So if block will be executed if and only if the expression, this conditional expression, this expression is evaluated as true. So if this condition becomes true, the if block will be executed, or else the flow continues as usual. So it's like if this if condition is true, if block is executed, and as usual remaining statements are executed. But if this if expression evaluates as false, if block will not be executed and remaining statements will be executed as usual. If you take some example here, I took n equal to 22. So I'm checking whether it is even number or not. And this given number is, this line will be printed regardless of if condition is true or false. But this if block that we have here, these two statements, those will be executed only if the condition is true. That is, if the number is n is even. And another thing we have is if else. This if else is like, so previously we don't have else block, remember here. So these two statements will be executed regardless of all statements that are outside at the top level and of the if statements are executed regardless of what happens here to the condition. But if block will be executed only if condition is true. But you have a situation where you want certain statements to be executed if condition is false. Okay, in such a case we use if else. So this expression we have here, it is called a conditional expression. If the expression is true, if block will be executed, otherwise else block will be executed, and the remaining statements are executed. Control comes back to the normal and remaining statements at the top level are executed as usual. So here if you take an example here, so this message, if n is divisible by 2 and we print given number is even number, else we print number is odd number. Okay, so else block will be executed only if condition is false. Okay, it is simple. You have a condition, if is executed if condition is true, else is executed if condition is false. Okay, and you have this crossroads scenario where in this crossroads scenario you see if you might want so there might be a case where multiple conditions needs to be checked. Okay, it's not like two parts. Okay, so if so for suppose there are discount scenario, there are discounts. If give, if a purchase, if you make a purchase from $10 to $15, you are eligible for a 5% discount. You purchase $20 to $30, you made a bill of $20 to $30, you are eligible for 10% discount. Okay, so that in that case, you have purchased items that are above $50, you are eligible for a 30% discount. Okay, and you have purchased you haven't you have purchased but if you purchase, your bill doesn't meet any of the criteria, you are not eligible for a discount, which means that you purchased less than $10. Okay, or you haven't made a purchase at all. Okay, so in those cases, you have multiple slabs, right? In such a case, you can actually use traditional if else, and you write multiple statements like this. Okay, so if expression, okay, if bill greater than 10 and less than 20, use statement else, and okay, you need to check here again, if the purchase is about $20 or like that. I hope you understand what I'm saying. You can write that using if else, traditional if else, but it will be, you're making it unnecessarily complex. But for that reason, you have a combination of if and else. This is called if else ladder because you can have a condition in a if also. Here it is not mentioned. So if also takes the expression. Okay, so and that way, in this we call it as ladder because only one block will be executed, and if nothing satisfies, and else block will be executed at the end. Okay, so if block will execute only if given condition value is true, otherwise following elif block, otherwise another following elif block will be checked. Okay, and so on, and if none of the if and the elif block satisfy, finally else block will be executed. Okay, and another thing here we have is a nested if else, where you can choose to use if else blocks inside another if condition. Okay, so this is called nested. Why? Because we have used, you see, you have if block, inside that we have written another if else block, and inside that we have another if else block. This is called nested. So that way, this is a program to determine whether the given year is leap year or not. Okay, what happens whether the given year is leap year or not? Leap year, checking a leap year is little bit complex, So leap year, we get that scenario where we have 29 days in February for every 4 years. Okay, so usually every year we get only 28 days per for February. So what year is leap year? For suppose 1992 is leap year, 2020 is leap year, 2024 is leap year. So for that, to check, we should divide a given year with 4. If it is divisible by 4, then it is a leap year. Otherwise, it is not leap year. Check this one. See the else, corresponding else for if is here else. Okay, can you see here? Yeah. So we printed given year is not leap. But there is another scenario. You see 1900, okay, 1900, 1800, those century years, that end with 2 zeros. Okay, sometimes they may be leap year and they may not be leap year. So for suppose, those years sometimes are divisible by 4, but they are not leap years. Okay, so in such a case, we need to check if it is a century year or not. For suppose if we take 1900, 1900, so century years are divisible by 100. Okay, if you take a 1950, what is a remainder? If you divide by 100, 50 is the remainder. Okay, So 1900 is a full century years, so that we are dividing by 100. So, and see if it is divisible by 100. If it is not divisible by 100, then is a leap year. You see, yeah, you see this one. If it is divisible by 4, it may be a leap year. It can be a leap year. Okay, and we need to make sure that it is divisible by it is, we are checking here whether it is a century year or not. So that is like, that exception is for century years only. If you take a 2020, okay, so there we have 20 is reminder, but if you take 1990, yeah, 2020 is leap year, but it is not century year. Okay, but if it is a century year, we just need an extra caution to make sure it is leap year. For that, we need to divide that by 400. Okay, so let me show you one thing. Okay, okay, check this one. A century years 1600, 2000 are leap years, but century years 1700, 1800, 1900 are not. Okay, so if it is not a century year, for suppose if we take a 1992, which is not century year, and it is divisible by 4, see here directly in else we are printing is a leap year, because 1992 is not century year and it is divisible by 4, we are certain that it is a leap year. But if it is a century year, like a 2000, 1900, we just need to take an extra caution, not to get into, falsely written 1900 as a leap year. We need to actually divide that by 400. Okay, why? Because this is another rule. If a century year, to determine century year whether it is a leap year or not, we can determine that by dividing it by 400. Okay, if it is divisible by 400, it is a leap year. Otherwise, it is not leap year. So we can actually use nested if else like this also to actually determine the complex, to form a complex conditional logic. Okay, branch.